Welcome back. Today's video is focusing on a specific topic of importance. And before I start, I want to give a disclaimer because the following, what I'm about to share, might be highly disturbing for a lot of people. What I'm about to share is portraying the horrific nature of human beings and the horrific acts they're able to perform. For me personally, focusing on this topic and especially speaking up for those who cannot speak up for themselves has a really deep passion inside my heart and really carries a strong motivation to open my eyes towards these topics, to be able to prevent, to be able to, in one case, help, and to be able, by not looking away, to acknowledge the fact that these horrific things are happening in the world, and just because I'm not focusing on them doesn't make them go away. So for me personally, I carry a really strong motivation to portray these topics and to create awareness around them. Just to give you a disclaimer though, if you don't feel comfortable hearing these horrific information about children being abused, about children being exploited, then please refrain from watching this video. This video is all about creating awareness about the horrific crimes that are going on in the world every day. The horrific crimes that are so often hidden from our view, but that doesn't mean they are not happening. Let's start with some facts. Did you know that in the realm of human trafficking, the act of child sex trafficking is a very commercial form of commercial sex exploitation? Did you know that the US is one of the biggest consumers and the biggest consuming markets of sexual exploitation material in the world? Did you know that the demand for porn actually fuels directly the demand for sex trafficking, and that porn consumption and the demand for sex trafficking are in direct relation to each other? Did you know that due to reports of 2018, US children were reported some of the most heavily sex trafficked people in the world? Did you know that these reports have also stated that the top 3 nations of origin for victims of human trafficking were the United States, the Philippines, and Mexico? Did you know that the expression of grooming explains a very gradual relationship between a sexual offender and a minor, wherein the sexual offender manipulates the minor for a very long time, starting from the first contact, gradually gains trust to this minor, and gradually starts manipulating and coercing that minor into performing some act of higher cause at a later point of time? Did you know that this form of coercion and manipulation can be happening on various forms and on various levels? It can be some form of threatening, it can be some form of blackmailing, it can be some form of pressuring, and it can especially be some form of really playing out the vulnerable aspects the victim is portraying. Did you know that video games, in-app chats, YouTube commenting, all different platforms, a variety on levels, acts as a hunting ground for predators for sexual exploitation of kids and minors? Did you know that the first act of contacting a minor by a sexual offender oftentimes happens through the help of social media networks? Also, social media networks are oftentimes used for sexual offenders to organize themselves and to gain contact to each other and thereby start organizing their networks and organizing their streams of distribution. Did you know that the first contact oftentimes happens through fake profiles through which the child will be chatting with a sexual abuser? But did you know that in a lot of cases the child and minor is even aware of the age of the offender but doesn't understand the offender as an offender but rather romanticizes the relationship? So the child is actively manipulated into believing that this destructive relationship and this destructive and highly exploitive state is actually something to be romanticized. Did you know that in a lot of countries, including Germany, sharing pictures, images, and videos of your kids, of your babies on social media platforms is actually technically a violation of their privacy rights? Did you know that by sharing information about your kids, like their name, their birth date, the country they were born in, the city they were born in, might actually put them at risk for identity theft? Did you know that with the impact of the pandemic and the impact of COVID, the demand for abusive imagery has shot up and the demand for obscene online material has doubled globally to 4 million? Did you know that in connection with the pandemic, the Australian government has actually reported offenders discussing the pandemic as an exploitation opportunity to find even more victims? Did you know that both Europol and Interpol have predicted that due to the pandemic lockdown regulations, there will be more time spent online that's unsupervised, which might put children at an additional risk at home for exploitation activities? Did you know that also due to Interpol that the organizers behind these networks, actually due to the pandemic, also find more time to organize their networks in the dark web and to organize their entire distribution process? And the list goes on and on. So let's talk about some preventative measures that we can do today to do our part in hopefully reducing some of that risk that our children are currently exposed to. And the aspects of what we can do right away is that we first engage into conversation and education with our kids, that we really strongly listen to their nonverbal cues, that we really strongly communicate on a very empathetic and open level, the one, dangers in a very humane and very soft way, and two, also watch out for signs of potential exploitation. Another aspect that especially parents and caregivers can do is really educate themselves on the environments their kids find themselves in. That starts with really knowing the browser history, for example, putting some additional security measures into place by using some protection software. Also downloading the apps your kids are currently interacting with and really educating yourself on knowing how these apps function and knowing the potential risks of those apps so you can take on preventative measures. Another aspect is very gently monitoring what the kids are doing online. Reports have shown that during the pandemic, sexual exploitation has actually happened while the kids were at home, while the parents were just in the other room. So really knowing transparently what the kid is doing online, what kind of online game interactions they are engaging in, what kind of streaming platforms they're on, also streaming platforms like Twitch and using Zoom conferences, all these different streaming opportunities create a potential risk for children. For a parent wanting to share cute pictures of their kids with their friends and with their network, it's highly relevant to take into account the different aspects that are of importance here. So that for one means when you're sharing and if you're posting content, which you should always re-evaluate if it's really necessary to share that content, because one, in Germany, this is actually technically a violation of the privacy rights of the kid. Until that kid turns 18, they have their own personal right of their images, so they haven't not been able to give you consent to post that picture, so technically under regulations it's a violation. If you want to post content, then really refraining from sharing it with a broader audience. So first of all, that means having a private profile. Second of all, that also means really limiting the circle of people seeing these images. So that also means going again and again through your friend network and your friends list on Facebook, on Instagram, and kicking people out. That's one thing you can do, eliminating everyone who you don't know closely. Another aspect that you can especially do on Facebook and Instagram is creating a list of close friends. So that means whenever you're sharing something then, you can tell the network that it's only to be shared with this close circle of people. An additional aspect is really refraining from sharing too much detailed information about your child. That goes for personality details such as the name and the birth date, but it also goes for all kind of aspects that can identify your child. So especially with the personality data, this is highly relevant to prevent identity theft. With the identification aspect, this is highly relevant to reduce the risk for someone else being able to identify your child. And this goes for environments. This goes for not making able for someone to see where your child goes to school, not offering the information where does your child live. These are all preventative measures that will reduce the risk of your child being potentially exploited or potentially being taken advantage of. For some technical aspects, whenever taking pictures of your child, this also means deactivating the metadata behind it and also deactivating the geo function. So you are also reducing the risk of identification there. And the final aspect that's always highly relevant is to refrain from sharing any kind of naked pictures of your child. That goes for even just partially naked pictures, but especially, of course, for fully naked pictures. The impact of the corona pandemic has showed that online activity has drastically increased during this time. So whichever activity you undertake to take on preventative measures to protect your child and to not put them at risk, and not widening their digital footprint even more, is going to keep your child a little bit more safe in a world where a lot of horrific things are happening. And to give some more guidance, I put together an entire online safety guide for children, which you can download completely for free. You can find the link in the description, and which will give you some more guidance on how to take on preventative measures, what kind of actions to refrain from, what kind of signs to watch out for, and on how to really reduce the risk on putting your child out in the world and having your child interact with the internet in a safer way. If you found this video helpful, please share this video with your network and your friends. If you find the guide helpful, please share the guide with your friends and your network as well. This is all my part and my role of serving and hopefully reducing the risk of child exploitation, and I'm really happy you took the time to watch this video and to educate yourself on this matter and take on awareness around the entire topic. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.